Welcome to the segment where I review movies past and present, examining them from a variety of perspectives, including the subjective, psychological, and personal. Informative and occasionally funny, this is LoganLand Rants. Welcome to LoganLand Rants, and today we're talking about Frances Ha. Now, I've done a movie review on this before, not a podcast episode, but I've done a review. And I decided to go with Frances Ha as the topic of this week's monologue. So, first we're going to talk about the genre a little bit, and we'll kind of go point by point at these notes I'm looking at. But, each little note, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points that we're going to go through, and you're going to have to deal with it. Well, assuming you like this podcast anyway. I mean, if you don't like it, you can just click off. But, Frances Ha, if you like it, then I'd suggest watching this film first. I should probably include a disclaimer to every one of my podcasts that if you like the movie in question, you should listen to this podcast. But if you haven't seen the movie, you don't have to listen. That's something to think about. But the genre is honestly a little hard to define. It's an independent, dramedy, I guess you'd call it. There are certainly funny moments, and, it has some dramatic beats too, though. It's definitely light on plot and genre conventions in general. So obviously, whatever you like or don't like about this movie will probably be addressed by the genre, if only to a point. But the director is the person I'm the biggest fan of. That's the second point on the notes bullet list, by the way. Director Noah Baumbach, who I'm a big fan of. I really like his films, like Kicking and Screaming is honestly okay, in my opinion. It was his first movie. He made it in 1995. And he also made other films I like While We're Young. That's a big one. And Marriage Story, which is really phenomenal, as I think. Oh yeah, I have covered Baumbach before. Forgot I did a Marriage Story podcast a while ago. Man, Netflix really is killing it. But Baumbach is a really good director. He's really known for humanizing his characters, making them, almost relatable, but not in an overbearing or evil way. He doesn't highlight the worst aspects of ourselves, but he kind of goes into the things that make us generally human. There's no good or bad value really ascribed to it. But the third bullet point is about the star power, which, let's be honest, does kind of hold true here. Adam Driver delivers a pretty good performance, but the real star of the movie is Frances Ha herself, Greta Gerwig. She also made Lady Bird, which I've covered on this podcast before. And she is a great director, a great actress, and just great. She's really charming. Seeing her in interviews, she's very, happy, but she talks a little slow, but overall she's a really entertaining and seems overall like a fun person. And I don't know if she was at the time Frances Ha was made, but she is married to Noah Baumbach, which is cool. And they're both good together, and I just like both their work. Obviously, it's a parasocial relationship, so ascribing any value to them is definitely a little short-sighted on my part, but whatever. They're great, and the acting in this movie, Frances Ha, is just great across the board. No other way around it. Greta Gerwig and Adam Driver, and a few other small actors, including, I forget the actress who plays Greta Gerwig's friend in this movie, but she also does a great job, and they have a very well-rounded, and the humor is very character-centric, so I think that kind of helps the acting a little bit. And the story, you've heard me monologue this far, so chances are you probably already know the story. It's a very low-concept movie about a girl played by Gerwig who tries to find an apartment in New York City while trying to work out her life in New York City. It's very interesting, more interesting than I made it sound just now. But, yeah, very low concept. It's not the type of movie that would get made on, a big budget unless it was funded by Netflix or A24 or something that knew how to market it. But honestly, it is not the most visually pleasing. It's black and white, which can be a turnoff for some people. Probably should have mentioned that before if you somehow haven't seen Frances Ha. But the thing about it is, it's good, it's it doesn't draw attention to itself. I think that's the best way I could use to describe it. Like, the visuals are good, but not too much so. And, some people could ascribe bad value to black and white movies, but I don't think black and white movies are inherently bad. I covered Mr. Smith Goes to Washington a couple weeks ago. I know black and white movies are nowhere close to bad. There are certainly some narrative drawbacks, like it does drag a little bit a few times, but overall, it never loses sight of its main story. But those are all the bullet points: genre, director, star/acting, story, visuals, and problems. So I went through all of those, but there is one category left if you count star and acting as separate, which is conclusion. I think overall the movie is great, but it's like all movies, not really for everyone. And honestly, there's a lot to be said for black and white movies. I know I keep hammering this point, but not all black and white movies are bad, or even really that old. Go see more movies. You'll love it. But the conclusion isn't really that. I'd suggest you watch Frances Ha if you haven't already. It's a very charming movie. There might be some R-rated sexual dialogue in there somewhere, but overall, worth watching. But this has been my really weird LoganLand rant about Frances Ha that, I've covered Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig before, obviously, but I love them both. They're great. If you want to watch more movies that I suggest, or if you just generally want to watch movies or listen to my thoughts about movies, feel free to like or subscribe or pledge to my Patreon. Stuff I ask every week, and it usually kind of works. And I'll see you next week with a brand new podcast. Bye.